You are listening to Aim Higher, a Catholic podcast designed to instruct and to encourage the daily practice of our faith.
Pax et bonum, peace and good to you all. Welcome to another episode of the Aim Higher podcast. I am Sister Catherine.
And I am Father Anthony.
Probably.
I'm probably Father Anthony. It's more than likely, but possibly.
I'm quite convinced. I mean,
I could be somebody else.
Who would want to pretend to be you? I don't know. With all the burdens.
You know, that is a very good question. Who would want to be me? I don't. There are days I don't want to be me.
There you go.
So, it is Father Anthony. I am 99.9% sure. I am
that it's probably you. Yes.
Yeah.
Anyway, so today's episode, we are going to continue on our series of the laws of the church.
I've been thinking about this. We have a lot of series going. We got series. I can't forget what these series are. Well, this one is good because we know how many there are going to be, 6 laws of the church. But
I could tell you how many they're going to be for the virtue series. There's a total of 12. Now, we may decide to just do it again next year and see if we say anything differently. Test our listeners to see how well they're paying attention. I don't know. Not that there's a test.
Wait a minute. They didn't do a new episode. They just relisted the old one. Well, and put some updated theme music. There's going to be a saxophone just vaguely in the background. Da, 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 da. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know.
That would be pretty it would not feel right. I think our music is
just fine.
Probably. Anyway, so that's 2 series so far. Plus we have the stories Jesus told or unpacking of parables, which we'll have to pick one of those one of these days because that was a lot of fun.
I need you, sister, because I just can't remember
these
things.
That's why I'm here. That's why I'm here.
I just got somebody telling me today, so when are we leaving tomorrow? I was like, what do you mean we're leaving tomorrow? Brother Thomas over here. Yeah, I'm going up north with you. I was like, you were? Oh my gosh. You are? I just got to remember, just happy I remember to shower.
We all are, Father.
Yeah. Anyway,
so
probably.
We are going, probably, yes. We are going to today tackle the second law of the church.
Second law.
And part of the reason why we decided to bump this up, we were intending on doing it soon, but we decided to do this right now because we are like right there on the Vigil of Pentecost and the Summer Ember Days.
Cusp.
On the cusp. I mean, it's days away. So
cusp.
We felt it was important to take a little extra time to go over these things with what the expectations are, because I think we kind of lose sight of it from time to time. If you're really not grabbing and looking over your catechism regularly, it's easy to kind of get a little, I don't know, you're not as clear of the expectation. Although I will say the Franciscan calendar, on the back of the calendar, it does clearly outline the expectations of the laws of fasting and abstaining. We still have some 2023 calendars available. If anyone would like one, I could always send them to you. Or if you just really would like to see the breakdown, send me an email. I can send that to you as well. We are here to help, although just try to keep in mind that sometimes what's the word I'm looking for? Taking initiative goes a long way too. I mean, it's your soul as well. I'm definitely interested in helping us all, including myself, to be a better Catholic, but at the same time, we can't always hold your hand. We can guide, but you can't, or I should say, maybe not holding hand, but spoon feeding it. It's like you have to take interest in it yourself.
There's a point when you have to, as St. Paul used the analogy, take them off of the milk and give them meat.
So
we're gonna need you to gnaw on a little bit of that jerky. Any flavor you want. I'm quite partial to teriyaki myself.
I knew you were gonna say that. I knew it. And anyway.
You gotta get the right kind. Of course, you go to some of these places, since I'm in, Wisconsin, and it's like everyone and their cousin makes jerky, and they sell it in a store. So there's this one brand, and I like a juicier jerky myself. That's tender when you bite into it. But this one's a little bit dry, though quite flavorful. It reminds me of the jerky that Bishop Giles made back in, I think it was 2001.
Probably.
Anyway. It could have been 02, but I'm pretty sure it was 01.
Well, he probably has no recollection of that.
Oh, I'm sure he does not.
Probably, right?
But I know he remembers when we made horseradish sauce.
Anyway, so with that said, I don't know if I read what the actual law is, so I'll repeat it anyway.
No, you did not, because I interrupted you.
That sounds probable.
But I'm reading along because I have my 2023 Franciscan calendar with the information.
Yes, it is very helpful. I think every home should have one. So again, we have some extra copies available. If you would like one, send me an email. Anyway, and also My Catholic Faith, which you talk about a lot, covers these things so beautifully. And I highly recommend that every household have a copy of this as well. If you're really going to have two books in your home as a Catholic, it's the Bible and some sort of catechism, but I would recommend My Catholic Faith. We've been going over the book the last year on our Monday night catechism class, and we're just taking a lesson at a time once a week. But even people we got a variety of ages joining in or listening after the fact, and you're never all caught up, I should say. There's never a point on your time on this earth that you should not revisit, study something in regards to your Catholic faith. It's a lifelong journey. So, and I try to impress that quite a bit to
and it's
students.
A wonderful reference tool. You might have a question about your faith, and go to My Catholic Faith. As long as you can read, you can read the table of contents, and you can read the index. You can find practically anything you're looking for dealing with the Catholic faith. It doesn't go into every last detail, but this is not, book of dogma as you get in the seminary.
Right.
But it's still quite extensive.
Thorough, yes.
It's very thorough.
And it does cover what you actually need to know to be a Catholic, to actually live your faith and profess your faith. So with that said, I think that will conclude my introduction here, since I lost I won the rock paper scissors, so it was my turn.
You won. So you got the honor to open up today's episode.
So, but I think it's on to you, Father.
Oh, fair enough. Okay, well, I would be held as well, beheld. It would do us well, beheld.
Well, I thought you said something else. And
it would behoove us well to. Well, we'll just read what we have written here on the calendar, dealing with the law of fasting. Everyone over 21 and having not yet completed 59 years of age is bound to observe the laws of fasting. On days of fasting, only one full meal is allowed. 2 other meatless meals, sufficient to maintain health and strength, may be taken according to each one's needs. Together, they should not equal another full meal. Now, fasting is to be observed on the weekdays of Lent, Ember Days, Holy Saturday, the Vigil of Pentecost, and the Vigil of the Nativity. Meat may be taken at the principal meal on a day of fast, except on Fridays, Ash Wednesday, Holy Saturday, and the Vigil of Nativity. Eating between meals is not permitted, and that, my dear friends, was in bold. Now, parentheses, bold. Liquids, including milk and fruit juices, are allowed. Abstinence. Everyone 7 years of age is bound to observe the laws of abstinence.
You skipped the word everyone over 7. You forgot the over.
Oh.
And I was wondering if you were going to catch it and like pick it up, but then if you left it, just everyone 7 years of age is bound to observe the laws, and someone
that would mean that, hey, I'm
only
8,
the 7.
I don't have to
yeah,
do it
exactly.
anymore. That's a tough year for the kid. Okay, let's do that again. Everyone over 7 years of age is bound to observe the laws of abstinence. On days of complete abstinence, meat and soup or gravy made with meat are not to be used at all. So that's complete abstinence. Not at all. Don't even smell it. Of course, if you smell it, that's not a sin.
But it might make it harder to abstain if you're one of those people. But it might make it hard to
abstain. Okay. Complete abstinence is observed on all Fridays, Ash Wednesday, Holy Saturday, and the Vigil of Nativity. On days of partial absence, meat and soup or gravy made with meat may be taken only at the main meal. Partial absence is to be observed on Ember Wednesdays, Ember Saturdays, and on the Vigil of Pentecost.
Very nice, Father.
Well, actually, I mean, they go together, but it might behoove to put in there that partial absence is also observed on the weekdays of Lent.
Oh, as far as those who are bound by the laws of fasting?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Well, because I remember that came up a year or two ago because you contacted me because someone said, Father, there's no fish or half a fish on the days during Lent. And of course, I was like, there's never been. And when you read it because it pertains to, the laws of fasting in that particular circumstance is different than
the ones that are listed here,
right?
Because it's connected with the Lenten fast in particular,
right? So if you're under the age of 21 and over the age of was that 60 and above, right?
59 complete, yeah.
But you during Lent can have meat more than once a day, if you so choose. But provided it's not an actual day of absence like Friday, Ash Wednesday. But okay, yeah, because I mean that never dawned on me that even would be a point of confusion, but
it could very well be. I mean, it could very well be.
And I mean,
you want to be sure because it's it's like, oh, that's what we do. Oh, are we doing it wrong? Like, no, it's just understanding how it's connected.
Well, let me ask you this, because I remember doing this story with some students about actual sin. Okay, so let's say you thought the law was that let's say you're over the age of 59, and you thought the law was that you could not eat meat but once a day, but then you do. Have you sinned even though you aren't in the realm of the actual what's the word I'm looking at, like being obliged to do so, bound to do so?
If you truly thought it was your duty, though you were mistaken, but you were convinced that you had to uphold it, yes, you would have sinned.
That's
because this is where you go to the conscience of the person
and the will. I mean, you're saying, well, I will not obey. I will not serve.
Which is really one of those interesting things, is the fact that, had you just, if you knew what you were doing, you understood the faith, you understood the rules, regulations, you wouldn't have sinned at all.
You would.
It wouldn't have been an issue.
You would think that this would not be something someone's trying to navigate in their life, but
it's just interesting. Well, it might not in this instance, but in other things that come up in their life, they might have a question.
Well, the story,
and it applies pretty in general,
that I shared with Stu is involved. It was a little girl, and it was the Feast of the Assumption, and she decided to skip Mass. It's basically showing how her day starts to fall apart just by one poor choice, which was actually started by not saying her morning prayers, and then she decided to skip Mass. Well, later on, you find out she's on a picnic with friends, and it's actually a Friday, and the friends pat cheese sandwiches, peanut butter sandwiches, but also meat sandwiches, and she decided she really wanted a meat sandwich, but she knew it was Friday. Now because she's overlooked that it's a holy day, didn't realize because on a holy day of obligation falls on a Friday, you can have meat. But in her mind, she thought, oh, I'm not supposed to eat meat today, and decided to do it anyway, that she sinned, and a serious sin at that. That's a mortal sin. I think sometimes we don't fully want to see that children can commit mortal sins, but it does happen. I mean, and this is an example of her actually full knowledge and decide to commit that mortal sin. I mean, that's the thing. You have to know it's a mortal sin and do it anyway, which is something that wasn't always, I had a hard time. I don't know if I really truly understood as an adult. I understand it now. I shouldn't say obviously. I'm still learning.
Probably.
I'm asking a lot of questions myself, and that's okay. That's not a sign of weakness. I just want to put it out there. If
it's a sign of growth.
It is. I mean, it's just important to just, I guess it just reiterates how important it is to study and revisit. And if you're really not sure by what's said on the calendar or the your catechism, well, please ask your priest. I mean, that's what they're there for. Well, I mean, even I would try to help if I could.
Yeah.
So
well, and it doesn't happen all the time. It's not like you're fasting, abstaining all year long, so it's fresh in your mind. And unfortunately, we don't live in the time where people can easily attend daily mass, and they'll follow the calendar as easily and as faithfully. They may not, it just does not occur to them. That is one of the reasons why we make a point in announcing the Ember Days, especially the Ember Days, because they kind of sneak up on you.
They do.
And other days of fasting, because it just might not come to someone's mind.
But Lent should really be like a no-brainer. Well, it really should. Yeah. I mean, if you don't know, you need to make an effort to know, because it is important. It's fasting, and I think you're going to get into the benefits of fasting, why we fast. Our Lord fasted, so I don't want to take away from what you have going, because I know when we did our first run of this, you had something to say about it. So, not really. No, we're good. Okay. I thought you had. I thought you had a Bible verse. No. Oh. Well, probably.
Well, probably no. But one of the things that I often look at, just not just Bible verses. Bible. Sorry, I didn't mean to say it like that. But also, the fathers of the church and what the church teaches on various points in here, and hearing what they have to say. I think it is so very beneficial for us. Even just like take fasting. I'm going to read a few of these quotes, a few of the quotes from various fathers throughout the centuries. Here is the fast you may keep for God. Do not commit any wicked deed in your life, and serve the Lord with a pure heart. Keep his commandments by walking according to his direction, and do not let any evil desire enter your heart. Have faith in God. This is taken from the 2nd century document, the Shepherd of Hermas. And this one speaks of a spiritual fasting, most especially. So even the fasting that we do, it has to reflect the our spiritual fasting, keeping from wickedness and looking to serve the Lord, as it said here, with the pure heart. Now, let not your fast be with the hypocrites, for they fast on Mondays and Thursdays, but do you fast on Wednesdays and Fridays? It's the teaching of the 12 apostles. I'll be honest, I read that one. I'm not sure what they're trying to get at there. But when it says not with hypocrites, there are people who command others to fast and to abstain, to do all these things, yet they themselves do not do it. And if you're expecting others to fall in line, you have to be willing to do so yourself. Like those in authority, there's the old saying that don't ask anyone to do or command anyone to do something you're not willing to do yourself.
Well, and that makes me think of the story of St. Francis when the brothers were fasting, and one of the brothers in the middle of the night was so overcome with hunger, he's, crying out. And of course, St. Francis woke up all the brothers and they had a meal. And it just kind of shows that sometimes, I mean, and this was not a church law time of fasting, it's something that they were doing on the regular, but that some things have to be taken in consideration, I guess, or that, I mean, what would have been the best solution to make, make him an example or mock him because he couldn't fast? I don't really know where I was going with that, to be honest with you.
Well, what it brings up is also a person doing it within their means. If we just kind of go back to what it says with the church law, and it talks about how, well, let me just kind of read it here, move over there, and that two other meatless meals sufficient to maintain health and strength and be taken according to each one's needs. Now, yes, that is like the part like you're being brought up here with this story of St. Francis. Certain brothers may not have needed to as much sustenance as this one brother did. But we also know this brother was getting carried away. So were the other brothers, because also attached to that story is that St. Francis discovered that they had certain instruments of penance attached to their bodies. And there was overly zealous attempt by many to like strap like metal chains around their bodies. I mean, so tight that it's like digging into their skin, and just looking to conquer the flesh. St. Francis' response to that was, you all, and not just this brother, he knows that most of the brothers, not all the others, were wearing such things. And he said, take those off. God is looking for servants, not victims. And of course, one would say, okay, that's about saying it's not a character study of St. Francis, but St. Francis may never have done that, but he did a lot of things that were quite extreme to Brother Body. But it does remind us of one fact, that not everyone is called. They have been in the history of the church certain souls that have been called to do a certain amount of penance, mortification, and fasting that would be impossible for anyone else to do without the grace of God. Let's take St. Francis again. He fasted 39 days. He fasted without bread or water, in imitation of our Lord, preparing himself for the feast of Satan. No, I think this was during the Lent. He was preparing himself for Lent. And, well, of course, the reason he only went 39 is he did not want to be tempted with that pride, that, hey, look what I did. I just, copied our Lord.
Just shows the wisdom in, St. Francis and a lot of the saints when it comes to guiding those under you to not overdo it. Because really, let's be honest, if there's a why are you doing it? Are you doing it to draw closer to God or bragging rights? I mean, and we all kind of want to, have everyone think well of ourselves, or well of us. I mean, it's a common temptation.
Yeah.
But you don't want that false piety. But I do think it's interesting. I don't know if we're going to expound on this 2 smaller meals, because I know we've talked about this quite a bit.
Well, I
talked
was
about it
going
with
to
the
think of
bishop.
expounding on it because
Okay.
it's a difficult thing to determine at times.
Definitely.
I'm a bigger man. I'm 6'1". I have weight. I'm a big man. I'm big enough when people see me, they shout, "Friar Tuck!"
Yeah.
They don't do that to Bishop Giles or Father Joseph, but they do that to me. And so I need a little bit more than someone of the bishop stature would need, or other people.
Right.
Um,
And before, if anyone's thinking it, was like, well, Father, you probably wouldn't be so heavy if you ate less. You still need a certain amount of calories to function. And I'm just gonna leave it there, because I will get on a tangent about the whole thing. So anyway, yes.
Agi Coraji, sister. Agi Coragis. Do what you're doing. Focus.
I'm focusing. I'm focused. I'm focused.
Okay, good. Because certain people, they need to eat more. You need to eat regularly, because if you just were to fast all the time, and you probably throw yourself throw your body off, your metabolism and all that. But anyway, it's kind of not really what the church is overly concerned about here. This part is about the sacrifice one can make. Now, what constitutes a full meal? It's such an open-ended conversation. What constitutes a full meal? The church is not actually set. I mean, it said you have your meat at this meal. You eat a full meal. I honestly don't know, like, what would be a full meal. Like, I could go to a group of people, we'd all agree. For me, I always looked at it that I have it's, I guess for years I always went with, if it's something I go for a second helping, that's a full meal. But that's not always perfect, because you always get that.
It's not exact, or it's not the same thing across the board. Because I mean, there are some people that could do just fine with a dry piece of toast and black coffee in the morning, and not, if you can do that and not be a bear to other people, like horrible, like your mood's fine, then yeah, I would say that you can do that.
Do you have to bring up my shortcomings, sister?
But I know for me personally, I cannot do that. I cannot physically function. Just to give you an example, maybe like how we eat, because this is usually people are interested.
Okay.
But generally speaking, for breakfast, we have a hard-boiled egg, granola, fruit. That's our breakfast. Some already say, "Whoa, that's a lot for the fast day," but it.
Okay. You just said a hard-boiled egg, granola, and fruit.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just like, is that the entree? Was there going to be more to this?
I usually have yogurt with mine, because I need the extra protein.
There you go.
So the bishop goes without yogurt. So
good for him.
Yes. For lunch, we usually do a salad, vegetables, a piece of fruit, and I usually make an egg sandwich to go with it. And I think I took a picture of our lunch one time and sent it to you, because people would see this as like, well, that's too much.
Well, this isn't necessarily what you would like. This is not just during fasting periods.
No,
you eat this all the time.
Right. So then you might be like, well, where is the sacrifice? Because I mean, typically we don't necessarily eat between meals anyway. So I guess,
Okay, I like someone say, well, Father, what do I do? Well, if it's okay, let's say I have my breakfast. I mean, breakfast is a little bit easier, because let's say I wouldn't call a bowl of cereal a full breakfast. All right, let's say you have a bowl of cereal in the morning. That would be like a partial meal. You have an egg sandwich or something, which is often what I have. I have like a bagel with egg in it. That's usually what I have for breakfast when I eat breakfast. And then it's something, of that nature. It'd be easier for me to say, okay, just don't go to the restaurant and order yourself the lumberjack or the grand slam, where you get like 3 different pieces of meat, bacon, sausage, and ham. Then you get like 2 pancakes, 2 eggs. Then you get some hash browns, and you also get some delicious bread, which you get to choose from. That is not a partial meal. That is a full meal. Father, what do I need to cut out of that to make it a partial meal? That's a good question. And I wish I could give you an absolute definite answer. But if you want my opinion, I would take away probably, well, first off, you're fasting and you're supposed to have no meat. So all that meat's gone. All right. Let's say you take the bread. Let's say you take the eggs. 2 eggs, that's good. You take the hash browns. Yeah, there.
I mean, I guess for me,
really,
eggs, hash browns, and fruit.
Take away the pancakes. Take away the pancakes. If you go with the eggs, the hash browns, and the toast, I'd say that's a partial meal. But that's me. I mean, it's like I look at that type of meal, and I'm like, is this fast season? Am I fasting? But if you get it in a skillet.
But also, it is very clear what
too.
You're supposed to eat to sustain you, and everybody's different. Everybody's work situation's different. So that's all has to be taken into consideration. I think if you're just really unclear of where you stand, you should talk to your priest, because especially if you have a job that's extra physical, you can't just be like, oh, well, I'm not going to fast. You actually have to get a dispensation.
Well, just like what I've just explained to you is that I was breaking up a very kind of a specific situation. So if there is an issue and a question is like, you talk to your confessor, and you give him your information, your work life, and what you need to accomplish, then it'll be easily to direct you personally. It's kind of like these health programs that say you get your health coach. They will help you plan your meals and encourage you through the day, and send you texts going, you can do it. I'm not going to send you a text, but I will advise on what you may cut out, because well, Father, I usually eat this for my normal breakfast. I was like, okay, I mean, will that sustain you up until your lunch period? Oh yeah, Father. I mean, yeah. But what if I were to take this out? Yeah, I'd be fine, Father. Okay. You can drink a little more water throughout the day. Keep yourself hydrated. Because how often is it that we feel like, oh, I'm starving, I'm ravenous? Yeah. How many times you're just a little dehydrated and you just need, and you're actually thirsty more than you are hungry?
Ooh, I I know that's a common mindset, that, or drink your hunger away, but sometimes you are hungry and you actually need food.
No, I'm not saying drink your hunger away, but I'm talking about the person who they need to get some water in them too. They need to hydrate.
Right.
Because then you do that, then you're like, oh, I wasn't as hungry than I was before. I'm not saying, because you're right, sister. A person well, I'm just going to be drinking water and water and water and water all the time, and then I'm going to have my 2 grapes in the afternoon, and then suck on a walnut, and then I'll be fine. I mean, just talking about this makes me hangry. But I have done it where I have, where in the seminary, I did drink plenty of water systematic throughout the day. That didn't mean I wasn't hungry, or I didn't eat, but it was more that I wasn't eating as much, and it did keep me sustained, because I wasn't dehydrating.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I'm saying. But you're right.
Oh, but you're right too. Being hydrated does play a part into it, but I know it's very common, and I also fell into that mindset. Well, I'm just gonna drink a bunch of water and not eat, and I'm gonna be okay. And I'm gonna tell you, I was not okay. So, So it is an interesting, I wouldn't say it's a dilemma, but just something that you have to think about. Like, again, because there are people that could eat a dry piece of toast and black coffee and be just fine. I've never met a person like that,
Bishop
because
Lewis.
okay, but how was his temperament
Oh,
throughout
pretty
the day?
good.
Okay, I mean,
Pretty
that
good.
because
I
that to
mean,
me is
he
an
ate
indicator.
later.
Sure, if you can, I'm not saying people can't. I just think it's few and far between. And maybe that was a grace but he also was very disciplined. I mean, we read the story about his time in Korea, how little he had to eat.
On a
He
regular basis,
right,
yeah.
that he also conditioned himself for that
Mm.
life. All right, I'm definitely a weaker character. So
Well, the thing is, what we're getting at here is you have duties to perform. You can't get yourself sick. So you have to be prudent. You have to be temperate in how you handle these things. And that's why if there is a legitimate reason and you need guidance, ask the priest. He'll basically set you on a regimen, let you know what you can do, and then also receive the graces and the benefits of fasting. Because as St. John Chrysostom says, fasting is a medicine. And St. Ambrose says, the mystic table is obtained by fasting, is acquired at the price of hunger. To that venerable table, holy fasts lead us. By that hunger, we purchase the things which are eternal. Now, what hunger are we talking about? We're not talking about this. Well, I just mentioned being hangry, starving yourself, and that you can't control yourself. So not everyone gets like that, but a lot of people do. If you push yourself too far,
I guess I've been around
uh,
too many diabetics in my
yeah.
life.
But subdue your flesh by fasting and abstinence from meat and drink as far as health allows. Saint Augustine, as far as health allows. So I think like following a rule that Bishop Lewis gave me, next to stop eating, you're too fat. I'm kidding. Uh, he didn't tell me stop eating, just don't eat as much, which he was right. But you should leave the table a little hungry, in the sense of not allowing it. You don't want to eat till you are full. I
I was gonna
mean,
say it's like the
like,
stuffed,
yeah, like
like
the stuffed, satisfied, feeling, good in there. And it's amazing if you actually um, work to condition yourself to eating to that point. And what do you find? Okay, it's like now you're getting to a little bit like the health thing here, but let's say that someone makes you a meal and you have chicken and you have your vegetable and you have a starch. Let's say it's rice. And you eat that plate, however ounces. I don't care. It's usually done by eye anyway. And you need a little bit more. You had a hard day, you need a little bit more. Well, maybe go to just getting another little piece of that chicken if there's more, or going for the vegetable, avoiding the starch, avoiding the easy carb, but eating something with protein and eating something with more nutrient to it. That's where you see a sacrifice is made, even for yourself. Instead of going to what is more appealing to you, going to something that is less appealing. I'm not
but
saying that
nourishing.
but nourishing. I'm not saying you have to, eat something that's going to make you want to, regurgitate your food or anything, but uh, we can find, fasting in just the denial of what we like. Saint, well, he probably is a saint in heaven, but uh, Bernard of Quintavalle, the first disciple of Saint Francis of Assisi, he said when dealing with fasting, said don't just completely um, cancel out or quit eating certain dishes that you like. He said you find the fasting more in having a little bit of that, just a little bit of it, and walking away.
Yes, the
I'm just
discipline.
like, oh boy.
That is true, because how often when we have something we really like, then you really want to have more of it, and
Hmm.
that's where that all can kind of come into play. And having that discipline, to
But
be temperate.
Here's another case in point here, sister. When it comes to fasting, especially in the times appointed in Lent, in Easter, uh, making sure you eat around the same time every day. Regularity will help you. Where then, if you are cutting a few things out of breakfast and a few things out of lunch, we said lunch. I talked about breakfast before. What about lunch, Father? What if I have a salad with my lunch? Well, I'd be like, if you're having a salad, then you're fasting, so you don't worry about anything else. But let's say I'm having a sandwich. Let's say I go to Subway usually and I get a tuna sub. You can do that, but I'd say go to Cousins. That's more delicious. As a delicious. Don't get the spicy tuna. It doesn't taste very good. I don't know. They put the oregano on that tuna, and it is really good. But anyway, maybe you don't get the 14-inch. You just get the 7-inch. Now, it's also a thing that you may find yourself having to kind of, gradually get yourself into this, where you don't need as much during the period, but always be ready because one day could be a little more strenuous than another, especially if you have a physical job. Now that's something totally different here. If you have a very physically demanding job, you are going to need have to eat more.
Yes, and I think it's important, though, the person that does have, and you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I think we did talk about this not on here, but amongst each other, that if you do have a physical job and you already are not disciplined in nourishing yourself to get through your day, then you need to work on that too, throughout the year. You can't just like, well, now, I don't normally eat breakfast, but now that it's Lent and now it's like I need to have my breakfast and my snacks to get through, but you didn't before. I think that is an issue of just, I guess, poor planning, poor discipline, poor life choice, if you will.
Well, I've met people, talk with people who say, Father, my hardest part for me is that I eat small meals throughout the day. Like, I don't really sit for a meal. I'm kind of snacking throughout the day. So, I mean, it's really hard for me with my job. And we're talking people with physical jobs. What do? I said, well, then this sacrifice, this fasting takes another character. It takes that scheduling the time for yourself. Mm-hmm. It is also a bit of a recreation. You probably need to sit down and actually eat.
Right. Well, I like how you said that's another character of it, because then if that's an issue come Lent, then you need to actually if it means you get up earlier or prepare something at night so you have it ready the next morning to eat. That's part of the Lenten sacrifice. That's just adding more to it. But just think about, because really whatever we do during the season of Lent, those sacrifices, those penance, are supposed to be something that we're just like, oh, hey, now that Easter's done, we don't have to worry about it. We should be carrying some of that over, the discipline, not necessarily outright continue the fasting, but you should have had something during that time that really spoke to you, helped you grow spiritually, and you should continue on with that, because we all have our things that we fall back on. We're generally speaking, we're lazy. We're prone to being slothful in many facets.
Fallen human nature.
But just because it's now Easter time doesn't mean, Easter Sunday, I can indulge in all the candy. Well, that's, depending on how much you've indulged. I mean, are you then committing gluttony? I mean, and do you really feel good that day after you just bombarded yourself with a ton of candy? Of course not.
That brings another question of what is gluttony, and when do you get to the point where you're being a glutton? Well, because I have sat there with people at dinner tables who will eat, that's in my mind, a very meager amount of food, and they're just like, oh, I ate so much. I hope I'm not. I don't actually say I hope I wasn't a glutton, or they may say, at least humorously, or they just get sick from it. I'm like, really? I that was barely the appetizer. But what you're kind of saying with that with the people is that what you have to do is make sure that you don't eat to excess where you're absolutely stuffed. I mean, let's take this classic example of Thanksgiving. That's like a day where it's like I was starving myself all day. So I can just indulge in this. And that is a sign of gluttony. I mean, it is. I mean, if you are purposely starving yourself all day, so you get to this big meal where you know there's going to be a lot of food, where basically you stuff yourself, that is gluttony.
Absolutely.
Now, when does that become serious case of gluttony? Gluttony becoming a mortal sin. Again, if you get to the point where you're stuffed, but you continue eating, and you don't care, you are treading mortal sin.
Yes.
Again, specifics. I would need to know the circumstances.
Right. Well, but it's also the people that wait all day to eat, and then because they want to try a variety of things, they'll take a plate of food, eat some of it, and then, well, they want new stuff, so they throw that plate away. And like that mentality blows my. I've seen it done, and it just blows my mind because we grew up in the land of no wasting food. And if we weren't going to eat it, Dad was definitely going to eat it.
Yeah.
Even coconut flavored meatballs.
Delicacy.
Anyway, it's just, and again, this is not some black and white circumstance, and I think sometimes we often look at it that way.
Yeah.
And I know it can be very challenging because I too am a bigger person, and I've realized that I actually do need to eat more than I want to at times, and so I have to just it's actually more of a disciplinary thing, but I'm definitely super self-conscious. It took me a long time to be comfortable eating in front of people, so because I'm already judging how much I'm eating. No matter what it is, how small it is, how big it is, I'm already like super aware of what I'm eating. And of course, I'm thinking everybody else is looking at me because the common consensus is, less calories. If you're overweight, you want to lose weight, calories in, calories out, or, just eat less and exercise more. It is not that simple. If it were, the world would be in a whole different, people that say that, I think, just never had a weight problem. So.
Well, it brings just to the point.
My background is nutrition, by the way. So.
Well, one of the things that you also keep in mind here is that, in fasting, and especially you go to like the Lenten season, it's not always about having less of something you like, but also changing of what normally you might eat. Having the burger at Burger King or someplace like that.
That was the best you could come up
with. I would say Culver's, but not everyone knows of Culver's.
There's a Culver's in Kentucky, and according to our stats, that's like our main group of listeners. But anyway, you're right. There's no Culver's.
Fine.
Yeah, there's no Culver's here, but
there should be. There should be a Culver's everywhere. But maybe you're not going to get the double cheeseburger with bacon, with sautéed onions and barbecue sauce on there. Anyway, maybe you're not going to get
the single.
I'm just kidding. But maybe then you'll get a chicken tenders. Something that's different. Maybe you're not going to get the fries. Maybe you'll get those green beans or whatever they offer now. I think it's broccoli now. I liked the green beans. Their green beans were delicious. Then they went with the broccoli, which really upset me. But I like broccoli. But anyway, but I'm add a little humor to it. But mix it up. And maybe even you find the sacrifice in what you eat. Like say, well, I have to eat enough of this in order to sustain me. Okay, but do you have to have the barbecue sauce? Do you have to have the ranch dressing? Do you have to have the salt, adding all that salt and all that pepper? Maybe you go without. Maybe eat it a little bland. Now, okay, I will say this, that there are some foods, like if you're eating just like a chicken breast, you need a little something to get that thing down, because
it can be dry.
It can be pretty dry no matter what you do to it. But you find various things you can do to make a sacrifice, and without getting yourself sick by denying yourself what you need.
The examples in some of the catechism, I think more geared to children, is to eat, even if you don't like it, eat it anyway. I mean, and I know that is like a common struggle for parents and children, but one of the ways to help them strive in virtue as they get older, I said, this is more, you're probably more likely to help the child connect the dots as they get a little bit older, 7 and above, because especially, with the laws of abstinence being those 7 and above, are to abstain from meat. This, these are conversations you'll be having with your child. So, but also just talking. So already they're conditioned, or being conditioned to understand sacrifice, and it's a continuation. It's a buildup.
Yeah, and what makes me think of here, and it's so very true, things that even though the church law does not put into place that the laws of fasting during Lent, that those who are, under the age of 21, if you are a kid living in your parents' home, you're a teenager, and mom and dad are, making you a meal, are they going to make you something with meat and, make themselves something without? Some may do it. I know our father didn't. No. He was like, if I can't eat meat, you're not eating meat.
And I remember Dad being very clear when the Ember Days came up, the reminder that you can only eat meat at your main meal. It's that important. And I will say that there's some updated versions of the catechism that will say that's for 14 years and older. So just be aware that it is actually truly 7 years.
Which is one of the reasons why we tell people go to the calendar.
Yep.
Because that is the approved version of the discipline, time of Pius XII, not after.
Yes. Right.
Pius XII.
And even, I think I saw a reprint of My Catholic Faith that did have the age of 14 in there. I know for sure I saw it in a Baltimore catechism, Baltimore catechism.
Yeah.
So, and to me, it's just like, why 14? I think 7's reasonable, because generally speaking, that's when a child is around to getting prepared to make the first communion. So that makes sense to me. 14 just seems like a little. But in the modernist church, I mean, it blows my mind some of the things I learned as time goes on. I mean, their Eucharistic fast is only an hour. So they don't fast during Lent except for Ash Wednesday and Good Friday.
And their Eucharistic fast includes both food and drink. Both. Actually, I think in some places they don't worry about drinking either.
I don't know.
But to be in one way, and to be to be somewhat fair, even though they completely just got rid of all of it. I mean, the laws of fasting and abstinence were a lot stricter centuries past. I mean, so much more strict.
Well, and even
excuse me.
We were talking recently, and I think we're almost like on the cusp of talking about abstinence anyway, but we were having a discussion about, we actually have it easier to fulfill the abstinence laws, because we could just easily go down a few miles on the street and get fish. People long ago did not have that luxury. It was actually harder for them when you really think about it. So we really just have no cause to complain. There are plenty meatless options out there. So when people hear that we don't eat meat on Friday, and their head practically explodes because I could never do that. I
love that. I loved that.
Well, first of all, a sacrifice for someone who loved us more than anyone that walked the face of the earth is if that's not reason enough, it is, or I mean, that's what more do you need?
Well, that's why I like explaining to people the reason why we do it.
Yep.
And it's like, why Friday? Why is it like a mortal sin if you were to eat a full meal with meat in it? you go to certain books in moral theology. I mean, if a person were to eat a certain amount of meat, like a small portion of meat, might not be a mortal sin. It could even be a venial sin. But so much depends upon the intention of the person,
Right.
where their mindsets were. But generally speaking, you knowingly sit down and say, I'm going to eat this meat. It doesn't matter how much you're going to eat. You intend to break the law, and you're going to be punished by incurring mortal sin upon your soul. And it is a serious thing. I remember Bishop Lewis, in many of our talks, we were actually in a Sam's Club. And I think we were actually waiting for a pizza being made. I don't remember what we were doing. But he said, there people asked him the question, do you think there are people in hell because they did not abstain from meat on a Friday? He says, yeah, probably. Might not be the only thing they've done, but that would be certainly counted among it.
But we also don't realize, let's say that you decide to go ahead and break that law, and you're so obstinate. I mean, to me, like, deciding to do it shows obstinacy anyway.
Yeah.
Do you think like that's just going to be something that you'll be able to dissipate by confessing it? Obviously, there's something going on in your habits, in your life that made you want to say no to God anyway, and you're going to need to figure that out and work that out. So it isn't necessarily just like, as you said, the one specific occurrence, but it's your attitude, it's your resolve, what the intention really. And
you usually, if it's like a one-time occurrence where a person does it, it's either out of pressure from people they're around. They were tempted by something. If there was no other, I mean, there's a question. Like, if you had to go to a place and you had, it was something, but you're duty bound to go there, and they were providing food, and there was absolutely nothing else to eat except the meat, you might have no other choice. But now we live in the day of cell phone. You can probably get a hold of the priest. But most cases, there are other options.
There are. I mean, even let's say your friends decide they're going to meet on a Friday to go to lunch, and they pick the restaurant, and it's a steak place. Okay. Usually there's still like at least a fish option, right? But if there's not, or let's say you can't stand fish, then you know what? Because it takes courage. This is where, the virtues come to play, and prayer, because prayer without fasting without prayer is just dieting. I love that saying. But then you get sides, you get the salad, you get a baked potato. And I know this is like, that's going to make you stand out. Well, that's where having it in your back pocket, understanding why we don't eat meat on Friday. I mean, I've never encountered, once I specified why we do what we do, I have yet to meet a person that just wants to rip you apart, rip the concept apart, tear you to shreds. It sounds, if you are confident in it, you understand it yourself, and these are your friends, they should respect you for it, not push you for it. And then I guess if those people are relentless and bullying you, then those people are not your friends. You need to find better friends.
Yeah. They should respect the courage of your conviction.
Right. So it's really not that impossible. I mean, I've never really been faced in that situation. I mean, I do remember learning as a child that if we went somewhere to someone's home on a Friday and they served meat, you then can eat the meat if that's served that way. Although if there's like a buffet of various items, then you pick the non-meat items.
Yeah. No,
and I've had people say, well, but if that's not enough, I was like, well, you're not going to die.
No,
probably from the lighter meal. This one instance, we are a world of abundance, surplus. I realize that there are areas in the world that don't have as much as we do, but most people have something. Then you get home from your outing and you go make a peanut butter sandwich. Even if you didn't, it's very unlikely you're going to die of starvation. So it is about choice. It's about standing up for your faith, your beliefs, wanting to honor God and to show your love for our Lord and his sacrifice, his dying on the cross for us. And if we don't really fully recognize that, then yeah, it is going to be hard. So hopefully with this podcast, since we brought up before, our listeners are going to be very well versed in the reasons why we don't eat meat. if you weren't already. So sometimes it can be tricky to articulate. So anyway.
Well, in that one one of the quotes I was reading, I want to try to find it here. And it's dealing with fasting, but again, also you can connect the obedience attached to abstinence to it. Again, St. Ambrose said, the mystic table is obtained by fasting, is acquired at the price of hunger. To that venerable table holy fasts lead us, but that hunger we purchase the things which are eternal. So that self-denial, which is what we're called to do, an imitation of Christ, is found very clearly in the act of fasting. Christ himself fasted 40 days before he began his public ministry. And we know that it is healthy for us to fast and also in that keeping moderation in our lives. That is what we have to seek to have. We have to seek the golden medium, the golden rule. No, virtue takes the middle path. That's why we have to be very prudent in how we approach fasting. Sometimes we have to get to the point, we have to just become aware of the duty. So be aware of the calendar. Say, okay, it's the Ember Day. So I'm going to make sure that I have my main meal. Your main meal can be either your lunch or your supper. It can be either one. Breakfast, no, it has to be at one of your partial meals. But making sure that your day is arranged that you take the spiritual benefit of it, and that's kind of what you want to get from all of this. What the church has put these laws into place to make sure that we follow the basic commands of God, but also for our spiritual welfare. We should get some spiritual benefit from these practices. One benefit is that it keeps the mind clearer. When you're bogged down with too much food or too much rich food, even if it's not a lot, but it's rich, it can cloud our minds. You talk about the tryptophan on Thanksgiving, and you just want to sleep after, but you always have room for the extra piece of pie. Unfortunately, we're opening a door to temptations. Our defenses have been weakened. We don't often think about that. We eat to nourish ourselves. That's why you don't want to starve yourself all day and then just eat a bunch at night, because then you might overdo it and your defenses are lower. This is where you have to have prudence, because you can then fall into especially sins of the flesh, sins against the 6th and 9th commandment, and anger, and 5th commandment, you can add that into there, often are very closely connected with fasting and abstaining. Basically, follow the advice of St. Joseph of Cupertino. Let your intentions be the right ones and leave the rest of it to God. Have the right intention how you approach the day. Let your intention be that I want to draw closer to God with this small little sacrifice. That's my intention, to imitate Christ just a little bit more each day, so I can grow in holiness and not be so attached with the things of the world that I don't have to go out every week to this place or that place. I need to eat this, I need to eat that, I need to go here, go there. I don't need those things, because I've denied myself those things for the love of Christ. And when we deny ourselves of those things, it's easier for us to turn our minds to the spiritual, to those things that truly nourish us, the whole man, the complete man, body and soul. If that's what we are seeking, then our fasting, our abstaining will be to our benefit. And
yep.
That's all I'm going to say on that.
I mean, and again, I guess I can't, 2 times enough, but 3 times. The calendar is very helpful with this. It's very clearly marked when the certain days of which you're required to fast and abstain occur. And in many cases, some of those don't even change. Holy Saturday is always going to be a day of full abstinence. Mm-hmm. Never, ever, mm-hmm. ever will that be different. Now, the vigil of Nativity, that could be different. In fact, is it this year or next year? Because I'm working on 2024, so I'm already kind of confused. Okay, 2023. If you haven't looked at your calendar yet, or if you need one, let me know. The vigil of the Nativity, December 24th, Christmas Eve, falls on a Sunday, which means you are not obliged to fast and abstain. Okay, I would say it probably would still be a good practice to do something extra in preparation for the birth of our Lord, the feast, but you're not required. But that is an instance where that can change. But Ash Wednesday, the full abstinence, that will always be the case. You will always, just as you will always be able to eat meat on Ascension Thursday. I like to throw that question in there. If the Feast of the Ascension falls on a Friday, can you eat meat? Now, if you say yes, I would say you're wrong, because the Feast of Ascension will always fall on a Thursday. That is, that's a set 40 days after Easter, always be on a Thursday. So, but, and the thing is, it's just the same every year. If you're really trying to take your faith seriously, this should not be an issue. Although this past year, we experienced the feast of St. Patrick's Day falling on a Friday. Now,
yeah, that was a bit of a question, wasn't it?
There were quite a few inquiries as to whether or not people would be permitted to have meat that day. All right. The calendar was very clear. I'm just going to put out there that His Excellency does review the calendar. Okay. He goes through it. If he was going to allow folks to have meat on St. Patrick's Day, we would have put that in there right from the get-go. But you know what? Not a big feast. In fact, I think St. Patrick is a little disheartened, people that might have thought, oh, we should be able to have meat on St. Patrick's Day. It's St. Patrick.
Well, I did speak with the bishop about this, and I was purposely playing devil's advocate.
Okay.
I said, all right, Your Excellency, but in the laws of fasting for the Lenten season, abstinence is intimately connected with it. Because you have other times, like we're required to abstain, like on Fridays normally. We don't have to fast, but abstain. So in the Lenten season, these are intimately connected. So if you say to people, well, you do not have to fast this day, automatically you would assume that means you do not have to abstain. And is it now? Would that be true? Normally, yes. It says, but the abstaining law attached to Friday supersedes
yes,
the abstaining that you would get on fasting during the Lenten season.
Yes.
I kind of mumbled that, but you get what I'm saying here.
Yes.
So there already was a law in place. So if bishop or any ordinary, really, he may choose to lift both. He can do that. Bishop Giles chose not to. And for that same reason, you can eat corned beef another day.
Right. I did have, because I ended up posting something on Instagram as a reminder, and I did have someone contact me. And this person is a convert, so I understood. So they were asking me about it. And I understood as a convert, maybe, it's something that you have to learn. And once I explained, because they thought it was similar to how Christmas works, if, the fast is kind of what you're saying there. And I explained that, no, that is still in place. That person's response was beautiful. All right, well, then we're having corned beef Saturday. No big deal. So but it was just really surprising the amount of phone calls we got. And I would just say that I'm grateful that it only happens, I don't know, every few years, if that. But at the same time, it's just like, really, is it so important? But again, I mean, and I'm not one to say that there's never a mistake on the calendar, because there's definitely been boo-boos, oversights, but that was not one of them. So
no, but it's
also the spirit, right?
It's the spirit of it. But I was going to say that you would rather a person do the inquiry and ask the question than assume something.
And if I hadn't posted that on Instagram and this person who obviously did not know, did not understand, had me that day, that person would not have been at fault because of their understanding of how it worked. Mm-hmm. But now they know. It was a great learning opportunity. But I mean, I know there was just like a heavy debate of it being allowed before, and whatever, but it wasn't allowed this year. And I think we all live to tell about it.
Well, that's the thing with dispensations in general. And it's happened in the history of the church where you'll have one bishop of a diocese, one ordinary, dispenses the people in the diocese, the parishioners in the diocese, excuse me, maybe every year for a celebration attached to the town. It doesn't mean that his successor has to do the same thing. He may choose not to.
Right.
And very often, especially if it's something that's so well connected with the diocese, they probably wouldn't do that.
Like, would it be like the date of the dedication of the church or something?
Yeah, something like that. Some big feast like that. If it lands on a Friday, or say it's always during the Lenten season. Let's say that you had yours was the Church of the Annunciation, and that's your parish anniversary.
Feast day.
Thank you. I don't know about, but always going to be in Lent. Annunciation's always going to be in Lent.
Sometimes it gets transferred if it falls during Holy Week, but I think Passion Week. Yes, I think it was transferred last year actually to after Easter. It happens occasionally.
Oh, see, I don't work on the calendar, but
you're proofreading this year.
Oh, am I?
Uh-huh.
Okay, cool. But anyway, so the ordinary may allow having a celebration that day. He may allow the celebration, or they may decide just to move it outside of Lent. But just bishops can even change their mind. They may have allowed something one year and they change their mind for another year, and they have their reasons for it. Mm-hmm. And it kind of goes to Lord Tennyson. It's not for us to reason why, it's for us to do or die. It doesn't mean you can't ask the question for your education, and please do so. We would like to educate, but always have the humble submission to the decision of the bishop, because if it's something that is something not important, but it's an opportunity for us to practice humility and obedience, let's take it.
Yes.
Let's take those opportunities. Yes. Let's do it with joy and excitement.
And also just try to remember that the priest, the bishop, studies far more in depth than we do, the laity does. There's aspects of canon law and all that you personally study that, again, the layperson is not going to really know about unless the situation comes up and they have to research it, and of course talking to their priest. So but I mean, it's even kind of, I guess, chuckle-worthy in a way with the whole fasting being taken out on St. Patrick's Day, but the church did that because my understanding was that it was better because we're so weak in character. It was better to lift the fast than to because it's not forcing people into mortal sin. Like you choose to break the fast if the fast was there. But I guess it was just, I don't know, too hard for people, or it was.
Well, I guess it was that there was the custom in the United States was for the immigrants that they would drink a lot more. Not saying they get drunk, but you got to remember that, the fasting, when we say abstaining, drink, or you can drink between meals, that does not include alcohol.
I believe you can
or is it beer you can
you can't have spirits.
Yes,
because it says here wine and beer are permitted, but spirits, so your rum and coke, your mojito would have to.
You mean I can't have my brandy old fashioned?
Not as a snack. So, and I learned that shortly after
I have to
turning.
go and rethink my life.
I learned that shortly after turning 21 because I had no idea. And I got to a point not long in my 20s where I was not really going out in general to like the bars and stuff, but also
you weren't going out at all.
I right. And especially during Lent, I started to take, you know what? It just doesn't feel right to go to anything celebratory. And my birthday generally does fall during Lent. Generally. And it got to, and I had to explain to people, it's like, it's Lent. I don't want to go out. I just really didn't want to either. I'm more of a homebody, which suits me just fine in this life too. I'm pretty happy if I don't have to leave the property. But if a good time to me would be sitting around playing a board game or something rather than a loud crowded bar or a loud restaurant. So, and I realize that that's a particularity of mine, maybe more common and maybe not so common. I mean, I'm not in my 20s anymore.
No,
I haven't been for 20 years. So
do the math.
Do the math. So anyway, very interesting, I guess, content here today. I don't know what else do we want to.
Well, we cover. Just remember, when we're talking about these laws of the church, these are the 6 laws that apply to every member of the church, one degree or another. And there are many laws in the church and canon law that do apply, but those deal with more specific cases. These are the things that we know on a regular basis when we follow the liturgical year, what we are expected to do as Catholics, day in and day out. And fasting and abstaining is one of the things that we were encouraged to do right from the beginning. Even the apostles, you find the Acts of the Apostles, they spoke of how they would fast after the anointing of Saul and Barnabas to their mission. And the apostles fasted. I forget where, I think it's like chapter 9 or something in the Acts of the Apostles. And we just see the benefit, and that the practice of the church has been consistent in this. But what we mentioned before, that physical fasting in itself is worthless. The physical abstinence in itself is worthless spiritually, if you do not have that right intention to do it for the honor and glory of God, the salvation of your soul, to better yourself in the imitation of Christ, then it is just, as you say, it's just dieting. And that is our goal. That is what we're striving for in all this, to draw closer to Christ, to continuously aim higher. And it's a lot easier to aim higher when we're not being bogged down by worldly things messing up our aim. So, sister, you have any other thoughts? Probably.